Hi everyone, it's Chris, and I would like you to imagine a business world where you comprehend and remember subjects in a business meeting and feel energized by them as a stakeholder, whatever your level. Imagine that you can retain knowledge easily and apply it to enhance your day-to-day work. Imagine that you can interact and collaborate and communicate easily and naturally, and the business just delivers its value stream, right? And people are engaged, interested, inspired, achieving great things together, the organism aligned, not fighting itself, right? I bet if you're anything like me, this seems like a bit of a dream, whether you're leadership or management or an employee, but it is possible. So what's holding us back? Rigid structures, traditional management, the roboticizing of human beings. The larger the company, the more likely it is to have lost that human aspect, right? The emotion, the drivers, the inspiration, the being a part. Now, obviously, there are companies like Google, which are exceptions, but they are exceptions. And all of this comes down to basic human interactions. Understanding that an organization is not just a simple ordered creature. And what is it that a human does best? We learn, right? We're teaching and learning machines, usually mutually. Business meetings, social events, coffees, technical trainings, onboarding, sales, whatever it is, we are teaching and learning, right? Every decision is based upon the individual's learning. And there's a reason that better business can usually be done over coffee or lunch than it can in a formal meeting. And that's because humans tend to use narrative to connect and understand and remember and exchange ideas. So narrative is how we have taught and learned for thousands of years, okay? It's helped shape our intelligence. For 22 years, I have been a consultant, a global teacher, a data protection expert, and I've used things like Lean and Agile and Kanban and Kaizen and teaching and learning, engagement, enablement, transformation, inspiration. But I do need time away from this as well. And so I take time to reflect and to learn new things and relax. And there are as many opportunities to learn outside business as there are inside business. And recently I do scuba diving. I went to the Philippines and I got lost off Boracay Island, 60 meters of water down, about a mile out from shore. It wasn't a particularly good position. Being lost at sea when you're on your own is bad. If the O-ring goes, you've got 20 meters up, you may be hit by a boat, you may get the bends, you may not even make it there, right? So it's not a good position to be in. And so, you know, it does happen. I couldn't see the boat anywhere. I'm trained, I set my compass, I came up to do a safety stop, I was heading in towards land. And when my safety stop was finished, I took out my DSMB, which is an inflatable buoy to tell a boat not to hit you, except it wasn't in my pocket. And I reached in and I pulled out a fresh hen's egg. And then I remembered that I'd left my DSMB on the boat because I was going to be doing pressure testing at 40 meters with an egg. It was a particularly bad place to be. So I came up with my GoPro pole instead with a float on the end, kind of like the Lady of the Lake with Excalibur, right, coming up out. And I got back on the boat. I found a coherent path out of chaos and complexity terms, and everything was okay. What did I learn from this? Well, number one, I learned not to leave my DSMB on the boat again. Number two, I learned to maybe have secondary plans and meet points, just in case when there are cross currents and visibility is low. I learned to make sure that the surface support wasn't just going to leave. The boat shouldn't have disappeared, right? I also learned a lot about momentary panic, about finding peace with it, being utterly isolated and basically sensory deprived. Like I've never been so alone in my life, to deal with the fear, to still see the beauty and the serenity around me, and that training is there for a good reason and that it works. Every minute of every day, we have opportunities to learn. They emerge. They are serendipitous, right? They are beneficial, fortunate discoveries, and we ignore or miss most of them. This happens in business as much as it does anywhere else. In fact, probably more so because everything in business is rote by the numbers. We do it every day. Teaching and learning is critical to everything we do in business. And we've forgotten how to do both. Companies suppress this very human side unless they see it as very rigid or compliance-based training, but it's actually fundamental to business and to our humanity. For 200 years, we've based our teaching upon pedagogy, and it's time to change how we share knowledge to align with how we actually learn. So what do we need to teach and learn properly? Well, we need to remember that we learn the same way. Humans learn neurally in the same fashion, but every single person has cultural differences, right? If they speak different languages, language frames how you think, and you will literally think differently. So you have to engage these people. People have individual differences, generations, upbringing, individual neurology, right? These all need engagement before neural learning will really take place. And we need to expand from thinking that teaching and learning is only about one domain, which is the cognitive. There are two more domains, the affective and the kinesthetic, right? Emotions and physical. We need to teach and learn using all three. We also need to learn how to move outside comfort zones. And there are models suggesting there are more than one comfort zone. So we need to pick the right one and not move too far, just enough to be effectively learning. We also need to understand that failure is absolutely essential for success. There is no failure, there is only feedback. And what you do with that feedback defines whether this is a failure or not. The most successful people in life make the most mistakes. They just don't tend to repeat them, right? They learn from them. This is really important. They are learning machines, but we're all learning machines, right? We can all do that. And we need to understand the true value of fast, constructive feedback, honest feedback, and we need to use it. So use everything that you have, mind, emotion, body. Fail, learn how not to do something and learn from that feedback. Learn how far to step outside, which comfort zone, learn how to engage people, learn how we all learn and teach according to that, because we literally cannot change how we learn. And use narrative, which seems very alien at work, but is it really? We tell stories all the time, it's very natural. If you want an example of how powerful narrative really is, how many of you remember what I've been doing exactly for the last 22 years? How many of you remember what happened to me when I was diving, what I had in my pocket, how I came back up out of the water, how I felt about it, what I learned from it, right? Dry data without context versus data with context. Narrative is powerful. People are powerful. People are the most valuable asset that a business has, and learning is the most powerful ability that we all have. So let's learn how to learn again. Let's bring the humanity and emotion and inspiration and learning back into business. For more information, I've got a blog post called the Neo-Paleo-Cognitive Diet. I also do a number of talks on this kind of stuff, which go a lot deeper into it. You can find that on involvemetraining.com, or you can follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn. But for now, thanks for watching and take care out there.